Commander Allison Wright stood at the viewport of the ESS Voyager, watching the alien station grow larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. Her heart beat faster with each passing second. This was it. First contact with the Galactic Confederacy. After decades of searching the skies for signs of intelligent life, humanity had finally received an answer. 2 minutes until docking, announced Lieutenant Frank Rodriguez from the pilot's seat. His steady voice betrayed none of the excitement that ran through the crew. Allison nodded, straightening her uniform. All personnel, prepare for arrival procedures. The small diplomatic team assembled behind her. Dr. Elena Morris, the lead xenobiologist, checked her tablet one final time. General Marcus Powell, representing Earth's unified military forces, stood stiffly at attention. His weathered face remained neutral, but Allison knew he carried the same mixture of hope and concern they all felt. "Remember," Allison said quietly, "we represent all of Earth now." The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. A soft hiss indicated the airlocks were connecting. "Atmosphere readings normal," Rodriguez reported. "Their air is compatible with ours, just as they promised in the transmissions." When the doors finally opened, Allison nearly gasped. The aliens, waiting for them, were nothing like the team had expected. The delegation consisted of 3 different species, all slender and delicate-looking. The apparent leader stood barely 5 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Its 4-fingered hands were long and thin, and its large eyes blinked slowly as it regarded the humans. "Welcome, Earth representatives," it said in perfect English, the words coming from a small device at its throat. "I am High Chancellor Xian of the Quarian Republic, current chair of the Confederacy Diplomatic Corps." Allison stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for this historic meeting." The next hours passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. The humans learned that the Galactic Confederacy united over 30 spacefaring species across hundreds of star systems. The Quarians, Teldarans, and Vashtari formed the founding members and still held the most political power. But as the initial, diplomacy gave way to more substantive discussions. Something strange became apparent to the human delegation. During a tour of the station, Allison noticed how the aliens moved with careful, measured steps. When Rodriguez accidentally dropped his datapad, the loud clatter caused several aliens to physically recoil in alarm. Later in the conference room, General Powell leaned toward Allison. "Have you noticed?" he whispered. "None of them have any muscle definition. They're all built like they evolved in low gravity." Dr. Morris nodded subtly. "Their bone structure appears much less dense than ours. I'd estimate their physical strength at perhaps a third of a human's." The real revelation came during the military briefing. When asked about Confederacy Defense Forces, a tall, willowy Teldaran admiral called up a holographic display. "The Confederacy maintains peace through our automated defense networks," the admiral explained, showing images of sleek robotic soldiers and unmanned ships. "All member species contribute to the technological development of our combat units." "You mean you have no actual soldiers?" Powell asked, confused. "No living beings in your military?" The room fell silent. The aliens exchanged glances that even across species barriers clearly communicated shock. "You send your biological forms into combat?" asked the Vashtari representative, her voice translator unable to hide the horror in her tone. "Voluntarily?" "Of course," Powell replied. "Our forces are composed of trained personnel, men and women who—" "Barbaric," whispered one of the smaller aliens to another, not realizing the human translators would pick it up. Chancellor Xian raised a hand to calm the murmurs. "Forgive our reaction, Earth friends. You must understand. No advanced civilization in the Confederacy has used biological soldiers for over 4,000 years. The risk to precious life is too great." "Then who controls your military actions?" Allison asked. "Our strategic AIs direct the robotic units based on parameters set by our Defense Council," Xian explained. "Wars, when they rarely occur, are conducted entirely by machines." That evening, the human delegation gathered in their assigned quarters to discuss the day's revelations. "They think we're savages," Powell said, pacing the room. Did you see how they looked at us when they realized we still fight our own battles? Dr. Morris was reviewing biological data on her tablet. It makes sense when you consider their physiology. Every species we've met today evolved on what they call garden worlds, planets with mild climates, low gravity, and minimal environmental hazards. While we come from Earth, Allison said, understanding dawning. With our higher gravity, extreme weather patterns, and geological instability. Exactly, Morris nodded. What they're dancing around saying directly is that Earth is what they classify as a death world, a planet so hostile that species evolving there develop unusual physical resilience. Powell stopped pacing. They're afraid of us. The next morning, the humans were summoned to the Confederacy Council chamber. Unlike the warm welcome of the previous day, the atmosphere was tense. Representatives from a dozen species sat in tiered seating, looking down at the human delegation. Chancellor Zian stood at the center. We have reviewed your application for Confederacy membership. There are concerns. What concerns? Allison asked directly. A Quarian scientist projected images of Earth. Hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes. Your homeworld is classified as a Class 4 death world. The environmental pressures have created a species with concerning physiological and psychological traits. We note your historical tendency toward conflict, added a Vashtari representative, and your continued practice of using biological forms in warfare indicates a disturbing comfort with violence. Powell stepped forward. With respect, what you call concerning traits have allowed humanity to survive and thrive. Our strength, endurance, and adaptability are not weaknesses. No one suggests they are weaknesses, General Powell, Zian said carefully, but your kind has evolved under pressures unknown to us. You are physically stronger than any Confederacy species. Your endurance is unsettling. Your bodies can withstand radiation, temperature, and physical trauma that would kill any of us instantly. Allison understood the unspoken fear. Chancellor, we came seeking peaceful relations. We have no hostile intentions. Perhaps not, Zian conceded. But the Council needs time to consider the implications of admitting a Death World species to the Confederacy. For now, we offer observer status only. As the humans returned to their ship, Powell looked thoughtful rather than offended. They think we're dangerous because we still fight our own battles, he said quietly to Allison. But mark my words, Commander. The day will come when they'll need exactly what we bring to the table. And when that day comes, they'll be grateful for the Deathworlders. Allison gazed out at the stars. I hope you're wrong, General, but I fear you might be right. Little did any of them know that 5 years later, Powell's prediction would prove more accurate than they could have imagined. 5 years had passed since first contact. Earth maintained its observer status in the Galactic Confederacy, neither fully accepted nor rejected. Humans had established a small embassy on Luminara, the Confederacy capital world, where Captain Eric Donovan now served as military liaison. Eric sat in the Grand Council chamber watching alien representatives argue. The room's curved walls displayed space battles happening many light years away. The images showed sleek robotic ships firing at each other amid the stars. The Xthori have taken 3 more systems, announced Admiral Vreen, a tall Teldaran with silvery skin. Our defense networks are failing against their new attack patterns. Worried whispers filled the chamber. Eric leaned forward, studying the battle footage. The attacking robots moved differently than the Confederacy units. They seemed to learn and adapt during combat. How many planets lost? Asked a Quarian delegate. 17 in the past month, Vreen replied. Her slender fingers trembled. Their robots adapt to our programming within minutes. They learn our patterns and develop countermeasures instantly. Eric had been sending reports of these developments back to Earth for months. The Xthori Empire had appeared suddenly on the edge of Confederacy space. Unlike the peaceful Confederacy, the Xthori sought expansion through conquest. Their robotic armies overwhelmed defense systems across the outer systems. Supreme Chancellor Zian, now 5 years older and looking frailer, raised a hand for silence. We have never faced such an adaptive enemy. Our robots follow the most advanced programming in the galaxy, yet they fail against the X-Story machines. Because your robots are predictable, Eric said quietly to himself. But the chamber's excellent. Acoustics carried his words. Heads turned toward the human section. Chancellor Zian blinked his large eyes. Captain Donovan, you have something to contribute? Eric hadn't meant to speak aloud, but now all eyes were on him. He stood, straightening his uniform. Your robots are programmed to follow perfect battle strategies, he explained. But the X-Story machines learn these patterns and counter them. You need unpredictability. Our battle algorithms are the result of 4,000 years of development, Admiral Vreen said stiffly. They represent perfect strategy. Perfect is predictable, Eric replied. In war, unpredictability can be more valuable than perfection. A new voice joined the conversation. The human is correct. The speaker was Jalkir, an ancient Vashtari known for his military wisdom. His skin had the pale blue tone of extreme age. Our civilizations removed biological beings from warfare for good reasons, Jalkir continued. But in doing so, we may have lost something essential. Improvisation. The council chamber erupted in argument. Eric returned to his seat as the aliens debated. Lieutenant Samantha Miller, Earth's tactical officer, leaned close. They're scared, she whispered. They've never had to face a superior force before. Eric nodded. Their robots follow programming. They can't think outside their instructions. The debate continued for hours until Chancellor Zian called for silence. We must consider all options, he said gravely, even unconventional ones. He turned toward the human delegation. Captain Donovan, what would Earth suggest? Eric stood again. Let us help. Not just with technology or advice, let us fight alongside your robots. Shocked murmurs filled the room. You propose sending biological humans into combat? Admiral Vreen asked, her voice rising. Against the most advanced robotic army in the galaxy? Yes, Eric replied simply. Humans can make decisions no program can predict. We can improvise, adapt, and overcome in ways machines cannot anticipate. The council exploded into chaos again. Some delegates looked horrified, others intrigued. Jalkir watched thoughtfully, his ancient eyes studying the humans. After the session ended, Chancellor Zian requested a private meeting with the Earth delegation. In a small chamber off the main hall, Eric found himself face to face with the Confederacy's highest leader. What you propose goes against everything we believe about modern warfare, Zian said. We abandon biological combat to preserve life. I understand, Eric replied. But sometimes you need to risk lives to save them. Lieutenant Miller stepped forward. Chancellor, I've analyzed the X-Story battle patterns. They're designed to counter programmed responses. They've never faced human unpredictability. Zian's assistant entered with a message. The Chancellor read it, his face growing even paler. The X-Story have destroyed the Teldaran defense fleet, he said quietly. The entire Teldaran system will fall within days. Billions of lives are at risk. He looked up at the humans, his large eyes reflecting the room's soft light. If we granted full Confederacy membership to Earth, would your people send soldiers? Actual living beings to fight alongside our robots? Eric exchanged glances with his team. I believe they would, Chancellor, but we would need access to your technology, your ships, and your battle data. And command authority, Miller added. Our officers must be able to direct both human forces and robot units. Zian closed his eyes briefly. The Council will resist. Many will call this barbaric. With respect, Chancellor, Eric said, losing your civilization would be worse. 3 days later, Eric stood before a different audience, the newly arrived officers of the Human Expeditionary Force. 1,000 soldiers had arrived from Earth aboard transport ships, the first wave of humanity's contribution to the war. Commander Jason Rivera, the Force leader, saluted Eric. Captain Donovan, the Earth Space Force is reporting for duty. Welcome to Luminara, Commander, Eric replied. I wish the circumstances were better. They walked together through the massive hangar, where Confederacy engineers were modifying alien battle armor to fit human bodies. The armor gleamed under the bright lights, built from materials far advanced beyond Earth technology. "The soldiers have been briefed?" Eric asked. "Yes," Rivera confirmed. "They understand we're fighting alongside robot armies, against robot enemies. Many are excited about the alien tech." They stopped at a viewport that overlooked the Luminara capital city, a sprawling metropolis of crystal towers and elevated gardens. Alien citizens moved about their daily lives, unaware of how close their civilization was to collapse. "They're counting on us," Eric said quietly. "The Confederacy has forgotten how to fight with passion, with instinct. They've programmed warfare into perfect algorithms." Rivera nodded. "And now they face an enemy with better algorithms." "Exactly. Our job isn't just to fight, it's to show them that warfare isn't just about perfect strategy. It's about heart, instinct, and the unpredictable spark of human creativity." In the distance, a Confederacy cruiser rose into the purple sky, its sleek form catching the light of Luminara's twin suns. Soon that ship would carry the first human soldiers into a galactic war. "The Ixthori expect to face more robots," Eric said. "Instead, they're about to meet the Deathworlders." Rivera smiled grimly. "I almost feel sorry for them." The Teldarin system's second moon hung in space like a pale blue jewel. Once a mining colony supporting thousands of alien workers, it now served as an Ixthori forward base. Commander Jason Rivera studied its surface through the view screen of the Confederacy transport ship. "Approach vector locked in," said the ship's AI. "Landing zone appears clear of enemy units." Rivera nodded to his team. 20 human soldiers dressed in Confederacy battle armor stood ready in the transport bay. The armor, designed for aliens with different proportions, had been hastily modified to fit human bodies. It felt light despite its advanced protection capabilities. "Remember the mission," Rivera said. "We secure the landing zone while Confederacy robots establish the perimeter. Then we push forward to the main facility." Staff Sergeant Maya Collins checked her weapon, a Confederacy energy rifle that felt strangely balanced in her hands. "The aliens will be watching us closely. First human combat mission in Confederacy space. Then let's show them what Deathworlders can do," Rivera replied. The transport shuddered as it entered the moon's thin atmosphere. Minutes later, they touched down on the rocky surface. The bay doors opened, revealing a desolate landscape under an alien sky. Rivera led his team out. They moved with practiced precision across the rocky terrain toward a ridge overlooking the mining facility. Behind them, larger transports landed, deploying squadrons of sleek combat robots. The Confederacy command link activated in Rivera's helmet. "Commander Rivera, this is Control. Our sensors detect standard Ixthori defense patterns. The robots will advance according to optimal engagement protocols." "Understood, Control," Rivera replied. "But we're going to do things a little differently." He signaled to his team, directing them to spread out in a formation no military textbook would recognize. The Confederacy robots, meanwhile, formed perfect lines and began their programmed advance toward the facility. From their ridge position, the humans watched as the battle unfolded below. The Ixthori defense robots emerged from the facility in precise formations. The two mechanical forces met in a clash of energy, weapons, and metal. "Look at that," Collins said quietly. "It's like watching a chess match. Every move calculated." She was right. The robot armies moved with mathematical precision, each unit following optimal battle algorithms. Within minutes, the Confederacy robots began falling as the Ixthori machines adapted to their attack patterns. Rivera activated his command link. "Control. The frontal assault is failing. The Ixthori are adapting too quickly." "We are adjusting our algorithms," Control replied. "Please maintain your position." Rivera exchanged glances with Collins. "Time for Plan B." He opened the channel to his team. "Humans, we're moving in. Squads Alpha and Beta, provide distraction at these coordinates. Squad Delta with me. We're going around back." "Commander?" Control interrupted. "Our simulations do not support this approach. Please wait for..." Rivera switched off the command channel. "Let's move." Collins and 5 others followed Rivera down a narrow ravine that curved behind the main facility. Unlike the open ground where the robot armies fought, this path was treacherous. Loose rocks, sudden drops, and areas exposed to toxic atmospheric gases that leaked from the facility. The robots don't use this approach because it's inefficient, Collins observed as they navigated the difficult terrain. Too many variables. Exactly, Rivera grinned behind his helmet. Robots calculate the safest, most efficient path. They don't consider that sometimes the worst path is the one nobody expects you to take. They reached a maintenance hatch that connected to the facility's lower levels. While the robots battled at the main entrance, no defenses guarded this access point. Too small for their combat units to use, Rivera explained as he worked on the lock. Designed for repair drones. The hatch opened with a soft hiss. The humans slipped inside, finding themselves in a narrow service tunnel. The facility's internal sensors, calibrated to detect robot signatures, failed to register the biological intruders. Meanwhile, outside the facility, the other human squads executed their part of the plan. Instead of following predictable attack patterns, they jumped between cover positions randomly, fired from unexpected angles, and used tactics that seemed illogical, but kept the HFY robots constantly adjusting. Inside, Rivera's team made their way toward the central control node. They encountered small maintenance drones but no combat units. The facility's designers had never considered the possibility of biological infiltrators. Control node ahead, Collins whispered, checking her scanner. I count 3 security units guarding it. Rivera studied the layout on his display. Standard approach would be to neutralize the guards sequentially. So we don't do that, Collins suggested. Exactly. We go in all at once, all directions. The tactic worked. The HFY security robots, programmed to track and counter methodical attacks, couldn't process 6 humans attacking simultaneously from different angles. In seconds, the guards were disabled. Collins accessed the control terminal. I'm in, uploading the shutdown sequence. Throughout the facility, HFY combat robots suddenly froze as their command signals were interrupted. Outside, the Confederacy forces quickly overwhelmed the now uncoordinated enemy units. Mission accomplished, Rivera reported when they regained contact with control. Facility secured. The return to the Confederacy command ship was met with a mixture of amazement and discomfort. The alien officers studied the humans with new eyes as Rivera's team removed their battle armor, revealing sweat-soaked uniforms beneath. Admiral Vreen approached Rivera, her slender frame seeming even more fragile beside the humans. Your methods were unorthodox, Commander. But effective, Rivera replied. Indeed. The Admiral looked troubled. Your squad moved through terrain our analysis deemed unsuitable for combat units. The atmospheric toxins alone should have... We're tougher than we look, Collins interjected. With a small smile, the Admiral's translator hesitated before conveying her next words. The biological resilience is impressive, but your tactical choices defied all established combat logic. You deliberately chose inferior positions and inefficient approaches. Sometimes the unexpected path is the best one, Rivera explained. The HFY robots are programmed to counter logical strategies. They can't prepare for actions that don't make mathematical sense. Later that evening, the humans gathered in their assigned quarters. A message arrived from Captain Donovan back on Luminara. Recordings of their mission were being viewed by the highest levels of the Confederacy government. They're still trying to understand how we did it, Rivera told his team. Their military hasn't used biological intuition in thousands of years. They've forgotten that sometimes you need to feel a battle, not just calculate it. Collins looked at her hands, still dirty from the mission. Do you think they'll let us do more? Oh yes, Rivera said with certainty. That facility was small, but we just accomplished something their robots couldn't. This is just the beginning. On the command deck above them, Admiral Vreen was reviewing the mission footage again. She paused on an image of Collins climbing through the toxic gas area, her face determined behind her helmet visor. The Deathworlders do not calculate victory, the Admiral murmured to her aide. They seize it. News of the humans' success spread quickly through the Confederacy. More missions followed, each demonstrating the same unexpected results. The war was far from over. But for the first time since the Story appeared, the Confederacy had hope. And across the stars, the Story collective registered something new in their calculations: uncertainty. 3 months after the first human victory, the Confederacy war effort had transformed. Lieutenant Colonel Kate Blackwood stood in the massive training facility on Luminara, watching humans and robots train together. The large warehouse-like space buzzed with activity as soldiers directed robot units through combat exercises. "The integration is proceeding faster than expected," said Chief Engineer Daniel Harris, walking beside her. His hands moved constantly as he adjusted settings on his tablet. "The robots are learning to respond to human commands instead of just following programming." Kate nodded. "And our soldiers are learning to think of the robots as partners, not just tools." In the center of the facility, a mixed unit practiced urban combat tactics. Human soldiers called out commands while robot units moved to provide cover. Unlike the perfectly ordered formations of traditional Confederacy tactics, these units moved in unpredictable patterns that would be difficult for Story systems to counter. "Colonel Blackwood," a voice called. Kate turned to see Jalkir, the ancient Vashtari military advisor, approaching slowly with his walking staff. Despite his age, his eyes remained sharp as they studied the training. "Your methods continue to surprise us," he said. "For centuries we designed our robots to fight with perfect efficiency. You teach them to be deliberately inefficient." Kate smiled. "Not inefficient, adaptive. Unpredictability is its own kind of efficiency in combat." Jalkir nodded thoughtfully. "The Story have lost 6 more systems in the past month. They do not know how to counter your human-robot units." The success of the first human missions had led to rapid expansion of Earth's role in the war. Now, 5,000 human soldiers served throughout Confederacy space, each leading teams of reprogrammed combat robots. Kate had developed the integration program, teaching robots to respond to improvised human commands rather than following rigid protocols. "We're ready to deploy the new Mark IV combat units," Daniel said, gesturing toward a row of sleek robots at the far end of the facility. "They're designed specifically to work with human commanders." These new robots were different from the standard Confederacy designs. They were larger, with reinforced frontal armor and attachment points where they could physically shield their human commanders. Some carried heavy weapons that would be too cumbersome for even the strongest human to wield effectively. "A true, symbiotic relationship," Jalkir observed. "The human provides intuition and unpredictability. The machine provides strength and protection." A soldier called out a warning, and they turned to see a delegation entering the facility. Supreme Chancellor Xian led a group of high-ranking Quarians toward them. The aliens moved with the careful steps typical of their fragile physiology. "Chancellor," Kate greeted him with a respectful bow. "We weren't expecting an inspection today." "This is not an inspection, Colonel," Xian replied. His voice sounded tired. "We bring news from the border regions. The Story have changed their tactics." The group moved to a private briefing room off the main floor. Holographic displays activated, showing recent battle footage. Kate studied the images with growing concern. "They're specifically targeting human commanders now," she observed. "Yes," confirmed Xian. "They have recognized that you Deathworlders are the key to our new strategies. Their priority is now eliminating human leadership rather than engaging our robotic forces." Daniel pointed to several frames. "They've developed new infiltration units, smaller, faster, designed to bypass front lines and strike at command positions." "They're adapting," Kate said grimly, "just as we are." "There is more," Xian added. "Our intelligence units have recovered partial data from a destroyed Story command node." The holographic display changed to show streams of encrypted data. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes widening as he processed the information. "This changes everything," he whispered. "The Story aren't just using advanced AI, they're something else entirely." Before he could explain further, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flashed and the room's security system automatically sealed the doors. "Perimeter breach," announced the facility's AI. "Unknown infiltration units detected. Security protocols activated. Zian looked alarmed. Here? On Luminara itself? Kate was already moving. They're getting bolder. Chancellor, stay here with your delegation. This room is secure. She and Daniel rushed back to the main floor, where soldiers were already organizing defenses. Through the large windows, Kate could see figures moving across the grounds outside. Sleek, dark shapes that moved with unnatural speed. HFY assassination units, Daniel said, checking his tablet. They're heading straight for this building. The facility's robot guards engaged the intruders, but the HFY units were faster, more agile. They seemed to predict each defensive move. Kate grabbed a nearby communication panel. All human personnel, activate Protocol Echo. I repeat, activate Protocol Echo. Throughout the facility, human soldiers began issuing seemingly random commands to their robot units. Instead of forming defensive lines, the robots spread out in chaotic patterns, changing positions unpredictably. The HFY units hesitated, their programming struggling to analyze the disorganized defense. That moment of confusion was all the defenders needed. Concentrated fire from multiple angles overwhelmed the intruders' shields, but one HFY unit broke through, moving at incredible speed toward the briefing room where the Chancellor waited. Major Ryan Cooper, a tall soldier with quick reflexes, spotted the threat and made a split-second decision. He threw himself into the HFY unit's path, using his armored body as a shield. The impact knocked both of them through a glass partition. The HFY's energy blade activated, slicing through Cooper's armor at the shoulder. Kate and two robot units rushed to help, but Cooper managed to pin the HFY unit down despite his injury. One of the robots fired a precision shot, disabling the assassin. When the attack was finally repelled, Kate found Chancellor Zian standing over Cooper in the medical bay. The human's shoulder was heavily bandaged, but he would recover. You risked your life for me, Zian said quietly. Cooper shrugged his good shoulder. Just doing my job, sir. No Confederacy species would have survived that impact, Zian observed. Your physical resilience continues to astonish us. Later, as the facility returned to normal operations, Dr. Olivia Reyes arrived from the research division. She had been analyzing the captured HFY unit in her lab. I've made a discovery, she told Kate and Daniel in a hushed voice. The HFY, they're not controlling these robots remotely as we assumed. The robots are the HFY. What do you mean? Kate asked. The units contain organic components, synthetic neural tissues. These aren't just machines, they're vessels. The HFY transferred their consciousness into mechanical bodies generations ago. Daniel sat back, stunned. An entirely mechanized species? That's why they adapt so quickly, Olivia continued. They're not AIs following programming. They're thinking beings in robot form. Kate considered this revelation. Then we're not fighting robots at all. We're fighting artificial bodies with real minds inside them. And they're terrified of you, Olivia added. Your human unpredictability threatens everything they've become. They abandoned their biological nature for perfect logical existence, and now they face an enemy whose greatest strength is biological chaos. As night fell over Luminara, news of Major Cooper's bravery spread through the Confederacy networks. For the first time, aliens began to see humans not as primitive or dangerous, but as valued allies whose unique traits might be the key to saving their civilization. And in her office, Kate began planning the next phase of the war, one that would bring the fight directly to the HFY home systems. The HFY central processing world hung in space like a metal sphere, its surface covered with gleaming structures that reached toward the stars. No natural features remained on this planet. Everything had been converted to support the computational needs of the mechanized species. Admiral William Garcia studied the world from the bridge of the Confederacy flagship. After 6 months of hard fighting, the combined human Confederacy forces had pushed the HFY back to their home system. Now came the most difficult part of the war, the final assault. All battle groups report ready, Admiral, said his communications officer. Garcia nodded. Begin the operation. Outside, thousands of Confederacy warships moved into position. Unlike the perfectly ordered formations of earlier battles, These ships moved in seemingly random patterns developed by human tacticians. Each vessel carried both robotic units and human soldiers working together in the integrated teams that had proven so effective. "The Ixthori are launching their defense fleet," reported the sensor officer. "Numbers match our projections." Garcia activated the ship-wide communication system. "All units execute primary protocol. I repeat, execute primary protocol." As the massive space battle began, a small stealth craft detached from the flagship's underside. Inside, Colonel Laura Peterson checked her team's equipment one last time. The infiltration craft carried only 6 humans. Peterson herself, Specialists Ben Martinez and Nicole Anderson, and 3 combat veterans. "Approaching insertion point," said the pilot. "Minimal electronic signatures as ordered." Peterson nodded. "Remember, everyone, the Ixthori sensors are calibrated to detect robotic and electronic signatures. They're looking for technology, not biology." "That's why we're going in almost naked," Martinez said, patting his light combat armor. Unlike standard Confederacy equipment, these suits contained minimal electronic components, just enough for life support and basic communications. The small craft landed silently on the planet's surface, several miles from the nearest sensor node. As the humans exited, they faced an alien landscape of metal and circuitry. The air was thin but breathable, maintained for the occasional organic visitors the Ixthori still received. "Move out," Peterson ordered. "Remember your training." The team proceeded on foot, avoiding main pathways where patrol units would detect them. The Ixthori, having existed as machines for thousands of years, had designed their world for efficiency, not security against biological infiltrators. Why guard against a threat that hadn't existed in their experience? After an hour of careful movement, they reached their first objective, an access point to the underground data tunnels. "I've got this," Anderson said, examining the entrance. Unlike her companions who carried minimal gear, her pack contained specialized equipment. "They've updated their security since our intelligence was gathered, but the basic architecture is the same." While she worked, Martinez kept watch. "Still clear. They have no idea we're here." In orbit above them, the space battle raged. Admiral Garcia's forces engaged the Ixthori fleet in a massive confrontation designed to draw attention away from the infiltration team. The battle appeared chaotic, but followed a complex strategy developed by human and Confederacy planners. Underground, Peterson's team moved through narrow maintenance tunnels. The passageways designed for repair drones were tight for humans but navigable. Occasionally they encountered small maintenance units, which they disabled quickly before moving on. "We're approaching the central nexus," Peterson whispered after. "Nearly 2 hours of careful progress." This is where it gets complicated. The central nexus was the heart of the Ixthori collective consciousness, a massive computer core where the digital minds of the species existed and communicated. Their intelligence suggested it would be heavily guarded by elite combat units. "I can see the main chamber ahead," Martinez reported, peering around a corner. "At least 20 guard units." Peterson studied the layout. "We can't fight through that many. We need a diversion." Martinez grinned. "I thought you might say that." He reached into his pack and produced several small objects that looked like stones, local materials. "I collected them on our way in and added a few things from my kit." "Improvised explosives?" Anderson asked, eyebrows raised. "Nothing fancy," Martinez replied. "Just enough to make noise and confusion." Peterson nodded. "Place them at the junction 2 sections back. Set timers for 3 minutes." When Martinez returned, Peterson outlined their plan. "When the explosives go off, most guards will investigate. We enter from the secondary access point, upload the virus, and extract." The team moved into position and waited. When the explosives detonated, the sound echoed through the metal corridors. As predicted, most of the guard units rushed toward the disturbance, leaving only 4 at the Nexus entrance. "Now," Peterson ordered. They rushed the remaining guards, disabling them with focused electromagnetic pulses before they could alert others. Inside the Nexus, Anderson immediately connected her device to the main terminal. "Beginning upload," she said, fingers flying across her interface. "This virus will disrupt their collective thought process, forcing individual units to lose coordination." But something was wrong. The upload progress stopped at 60%. "They're adapting," Anderson said urgently. "The virus is being quarantined. They're learning to counter it faster than we anticipated." Peterson made a quick decision. "Martinez, physical disruption. Now." Martinez nodded and pulled out his backup plan, a simple thermite charge. "This won't destroy the whole system, but it will damage enough connection nodes to disrupt their coordination." Before he could place it, a hidden panel opened and 3 combat units entered the chamber. These were unlike any they had encountered before, larger, heavily armored, clearly designed for internal security. "Protect Anderson," Peterson shouted, firing her weapon at the first unit. The energy bolts barely slowed it down. Martinez dove under a console, drawing the unit's attention. "Keep working on the upload, I'll keep them busy." The fighting was intense in the confined space. One by one, Peterson's team was injured or pinned down. Anderson worked frantically at the terminal, trying to bypass the HFY defenses. "It's no use," she finally admitted. "They're countering every approach algorithmically." Peterson looked at the central processor, a massive column of crystalline computing material. Years of tactical training had taught her to identify the weak point in any system. "If digital won't work," she said grimly, "we go physical." She grabbed Martinez's thermite charge and sprinted toward the central column. An HFY unit fired, grazing her shoulder, but she kept moving. With a final lunge, she slammed the charge against a critical junction point and activated it. The thermite flared with blinding heat, melting through the connection nodes. Throughout the facility, lights flickered as the HFY collective consciousness fragmented. Peterson staggered back, clutching her wounded shoulder. Sometimes the oldest solutions work best. In orbit, Admiral Garcia watched in amazement as the coordinated HFY fleet suddenly fell into disarray. Ships stopped responding to each other, formations broke apart, and their previously perfect tactics collapsed. "The team succeeded," he said quietly. "All units press the advantage." Hours later, Peterson's team was extracted by a rescue craft. Despite injuries, all 6 humans had survived. As medical teams treated them aboard the flagship, a communication came through from the planet's surface. "The HFY are requesting terms," the communications officer reported. "Their collective has been fragmented, but enough remains for them to communicate. They wish to surrender." 1 month later, Chancellor Allison Wright, formerly Commander Wright, who had led the first contact mission years earlier, addressed the Galactic Confederacy Senate. Representatives from all member species filled the Grand Chamber. "Today marks a new era for our civilization," she announced. "The HFY threat has been contained, and they have agreed to withdraw to their home system under the terms of our peace treaty." She gestured to where Admiral Garcia and Colonel Peterson stood among the human delegation. "This victory would not have been possible without the unique partnership between our species. The Confederacy contributed its advanced technology and centuries of wisdom. Earth contributed the unpredictability, adaptability, and raw determination that only Deathworlders could provide." Chancellor Zian rose from his seat. "We have learned much from our human allies. For thousands of years we believed that removing biological beings from warfare was the path to civilization. Now we understand that the very qualities that make biological life complex and unpredictable are also its greatest strengths." The Senate chamber erupted in applause as Zian announced the establishment of the first multi-species military academy on Earth, a place where the Confederacy's technological expertise would combine with humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. As the celebration continued, Peterson found herself standing next to Garcia near a viewport overlooking the glittering capital city. "Do you think they understand yet?" she asked quietly. "Understand what?" Garcia replied. "That we're just getting started. That the Deathworlders are here to stay." Garcia smiled. "I think they're beginning to, and I think the galaxy will never be the same."